Welcome to my show, simply entitled Women Influencers, where you will find inspirational stories of successful women in business. I am Veronica Malolos, CCIM, founder and CEO of the Capstrata Group of Companies, providing commercial real estate development, brokerage, and property management services in the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Dr. Camille Preston, a business psychologist, author, founder, and executive coach at her company, AIM or AIM Leadership. This is definitely one of my favorite conversations on my show. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast.
Hi, Camille. How are you today?
Fabulous. I'm thrilled and looking forward to our conversation.
So awesome. You're in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I'm all the way in Orlando, Florida. And so I'm super excited for our time here today. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right in. So, Camille, tell us about your story, how you grew up in your environment, and how you got to where you are today.
I was born in the New England area. Both my parents were educators. I was the youngest of three, and my dad actually took an early retirement. He had served a number of years as an educator, and when I was a senior in high school, he actually shifted careers and ended up leaving Massachusetts, moving up to Vermont to be an environmentalist. And so I feel like his courage and tenacity and willingness to follow his dreams, do good work, pivot was such a role model for how I think about walking through open doors and seeing new opportunities.
That's awesome. And so you grew up in Massachusetts and then Vermont. Did you kind of move back to Massachusetts?
They moved to Vermont after I graduated from high school. So that became my home base. But I actually I went from college to living in Africa. I worked for the State Department, to grad school, to working in Washington, D.C. and Capitol Hill and all of that. And I had decided to move to San Francisco, and I met my husband out in San Francisco, but he was living in New Hampshire. And so I never planned on coming back to Massachusetts, but it was where he was based. And then we had a long infertility journey, and Massachusetts has very generous infertility benefits. So we stayed thinking we'll stay till we have a family, and then we grew roots, and here I am.
Wow,
Two kids
all over.
and yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome story. I mean, traveling all over and moving from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast and come back to the East Coast. That's pretty fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about that infertility journey. And I'm
Mhm.
curious about how you transitioned actually into being a executive leadership guru and an author and all the good stuff that you've been doing.
Sure. Well, to answer the second question, I finished my doctorate. I was working on Capitol Hill, and I had done my dissertation with police executives, and I was invited to work for a nonprofit, global nonprofit that served police chiefs from large jurisdictions. And my first day on the job was 9/11, which is the day that law enforcement changed from hometown security to homeland security. And all of a sudden, I found all these police chiefs in my office, and they're like every single one of us. They are good people, hardworking people who have a desire to serve, and they moved up through the ranks. And then when 9/11 happened, they were not prepared for the
Mhm.
roles and responsibilities and all that took, not to mention like their own grief and managing the complexity of change. And that's what really pivoted me into leadership development. So I launched my company. I was in that nonprofit for a couple of years, and then I launched my company in 2004, and I've been iterating and evolving. So that was kind of what brought me into leadership development.
Did you break off or leave the corporate world and start your own business in 2004? Or was that kind of like in transition? How did that all happen?
So I was in this nonprofit, I was asking police chiefs what they need. We did an assessment of like, what is it that you need most? And I think four out of the top six things were leadership development. And that like just activated this part of me of like great people wanting to serve, let me serve them. And the nonprofit I was in said, we want to be leading edge, not bleeding edge. If we offer
Mm,
leadership development, it'll suggest that our members lack leadership. And I remember saying, they do. They're asking for it. Like, I need to do this. And that was one of those critical choice points. And the company I was with did not want to do that. And so
mm,
I had a lot of federal grants. So I took the federal grants. I wanted to fulfill my obligation to complete those grants. And while that was 2003, and while I was completing those, I fell so deeply in love with the idea of working with people and helping them awaken their own inner mastery, awaken that next side, that next edge to be a better version of themselves. And so that was the origin story of AIM leadership, which actually
Wow.
AIM stands for Awaken Inner Mastery, but it's a little hidden
Oh,
in
I love that.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, AIM. And it's really interesting how corporations have evolved, right? I see it all the time because corporations actually forget sometimes that their leaders are also people, people
Absolutely.
who experience different things, positive and negative. And so the lack of consideration and also validation that their leaders are people, I think, is where that big gap kind of happens. And I'm so glad for your service to corporations. So tell us a little bit more about how you've evolved into being an author as
Yeah.
well.
I just want to put an exclamation mark on what you said too, and I will respond about the book. But we are all doing the best that we can in the world, and we are all humans. And if you get to the point where you think you're above that, then it's actually almost like a more of a flag for how you
Mhm.
navigate. Um, I feel like I'm like you because I've based on your background of being gritty and tenacious and breaking down barriers. I feel like my business evolved every 2 or 3 years, like changing, adding new things, bringing in new ideas, new concepts. And so, the my third book, the just came out last month. It's called Living Real, and it's all about how is it that we do hard things and embrace hard things and figure out that part of ourself that kind of um, how do we hold the tension or the complexity of what's really hard and so that we can open into the next side, next development of ourselves.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's really it makes a whole lot of sense to me, given your servant leadership and
Mhm.
wanting to be supportive of the need that you. I mean, talk about. And I'm curious. This is your third book. What were the other two books? I mean, what were they about?
The first book was called Rewired, and it was all about how technology is changing our brain. And
Mm.
anyone listening is saying, uh-huh, no doubt, absolutely. But when that book came out in 2010, 2011, it was no one was talking about it. No one was thinking about it. And now I see, as a business psychologist, I see so many people craving getting back to themselves, getting back to that core part of themselves. Like we want to be amazing at what we do and we want to rekindle that part of ourselves. So Rewired was how it's changing our brains. The second book was called Create More Flow, which is really how do I understand myself to put myself in the best possible position? Like how can I manage my own world so that I can spend more time in flow, which is peak performance and so forth. And then this third book is saying, okay, I can master how to be an amazing business person and like get it all, the title, the house, the kids, the wife, the like whatever, and be successful. But how do I actually be successful inside? And so it's really
Mhm.
this interesting evolution that's been I would love to say planned, but it's not. Like things just keep popping in and it's like, oh, now this is what you need to do. So
Well, I have to agree that it's I'm getting the sense that we're kind of the same because over the short, say 5 or 6 or 7 years that I've owned my commercial real estate company, I've also just been open to more and stepping into doors that are being opened to me without reservation as to, oh, that wasn't part of my first strategic plan. Well, guess what? You want to keep going. I This is a great segue to my next question because you've
uh-oh.
talked about your book,
Uh-huh.
and I wanted to ask you about the challenge that comes to
Mm.
mind that you overcame, and what was about that you're most proud of that you could share to our audience today.
Yeah, that's first of all, it's a great question. And humbly, I think if we should be always confronting challenges as if we want to live real, like facing what is being presented. For me, the challenge that's most front of mind is I actually had 5 deaths in 5 months. And The first one was like my closest family member. It was my most beloved, deepest connection. It was my dad's brother. So it was an uncle, which the world doesn't really see as like you shouldn't be torn up about an uncle, but he was widowed and had no kids, and he was my everything. Like we talked every single day during COVID. And then it was like it just kept happening and kept happening to the point where you almost couldn't just like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and like move through it. And and so in that challenge, I remember just stepping back. I kept my business running, but I said, I need to recharge. I had been living with intensity and drive, and I was not necessarily fueling myself with I was activated, not enlivened. I was like going after things, but not the best version of myself. And so in that challenge, it actually forced me to step back, spend more time in nature, and open to a whole new side of myself. So I
I
guess
love that.
I'm curious, do you have a similar experience of like hitting adversity?
Well, yes. I mean, who doesn't, right, Camille? I mean, just 2 months ago, we lost our brother-in-law, the husband of my sister. And I'll tell you,
Ugh.
we were all so torn up. And I totally, totally understand where you're coming from when it was your uncle, who people might think, well, why are you so torn up about that? But it's the relationship, right? That actually, but I love how you said you just had to step back and expose yourself again to nature that gives you peace. At least that's how you dealt with it.
Mhm.
Be able to. I love that. I'm going to ask you, Camille, about influence. You're an
Mm.
author. You have built a family. You have a company. If there was one outcome you're most proud of that you had influence on, what would that be?
I think any parent would say their kids because I'm so proud to be a mom, especially how hard it was to conceive. But I think today it's this book. Like it's still so new. And I hear people, I walked into the yoga studio that I practice at, and the owner of the yoga studio was there yesterday morning. And she squealed at 5:15 in the morning. And she's like, I just finished listening to your book for the second time.
Oh,
And I was humbled because anyway, there's a whole side story of that. But hearing how so it's humbling to follow your intuition and listen and like that wisdom to bring something into the world, but then to see how it's impacting people and to see
mhm,
how people are living differently as a result. I had another woman who approached me and she said, I had no idea that I've been shallowing in my marriage and how superficial my marriage is. And I feel like I'm at a choice point. I want to dive in. I want to live real. Like I love this man. I need to lean back in. And so the idea of living real shows up across like how you parent, how you partner, how you live, the choices you make. A a I was facilitating an offsite for a publicly traded tech company, and the CEO at the beginning of the offsite said, "We have casual commitments," and I was like, tell me more. He's like we set goals, but we don't follow through and we don't necessarily hold people accountable. I was like, well,
mhm,
how are your returns? He's like, they're casual too. And it's this idea if you don't do the hard things, you're not going to feel the delight and the joy. Life is about
mm.
that whole the highs and the lows. And so hearing people impacted is so humbling and so exciting. And I just love hearing those stories.
Oh no, and absolutely. If our focus is in serving other people and you hear about the impact you've made at the end of the day, that's really what matters. Is it not, Camille?
Oh, so true. It's so true. And I think it goes back to what you often talk about as mindset, like a mindset of service, a mindset of impact, a mindset of doing hard things and
Mhm.
navigating that type of adversity.
Well, I just absolutely love that. Camille, let me ask you, if there was one piece of advice that you could give
Mhm.
to our audience today, what would that be?
We live in a world where there's so much information and so much knowledge out in the world, and you could answer almost any question with a couple clicks. My advice would be listen inward. Listen to that voice inside you that has the wisdom, that knows what's the right next step, that might be scared, but has a depth of knowledge. Again, I go to nature as a way to find that stillness to listen, but I feel like the world is in such a tumultuous place, and there's so much complexity that if we all were listening inward to that inner compass and that inner knowledge, we would probably be guided.
I totally agree. So
Mhm.
totally agree with that. I think we miss out on having a conversation with ourselves. Well, let me take that back. I think we miss out on positive conversations with
Yes.
ourselves.
Well
Because
said.
we could actually have negative conversations with ourselves, and they absolutely have negative outcomes. So I think we've come to the portion of our interview, Camille, where you get to ask me a question. So
Yeah.
please.
I would love to know. My perception is with your tenacity and grit and your success, you probably live real a lot. And I'm curious, what is a really hard thing that you were able to embrace or face, something that might be in the metaphoric basement or something that we push away that has actually opened you to heights, new love, new experience, new joy, or new success?
Well, thank you for the question, Camille. And your question actually brings me to about 22 years ago when our daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And it comes to mind because your question is about how did you kind of get through a difficult time and how did you find joy? I think that's the question.
How did you face adversity? Yeah, like
Yeah.
how do you do that when your beloved is diagnosed stage
Yeah.
4?
And by the way, she's 22. And so by faith alone,
She was young when she got diagnosed.
3.5 months, yes. And we went through quite a bit of treatment. And you see your little infant child just going through so much. The day that the doctors told us her diagnosis, the only thing that came to my mind as I was seeing the rest of my family fall apart, especially
Mm,
my husband, who the year before, or let's see, 2 or 3 years before, had lost his wife to breast cancer. And of course, the kids lost their mother, right? And now their sister, and then of course our daughter was had stage 4 brain cancer. And the only thing that came to mind was I will make sure that I will be an example of hope
mm.
and positive thoughts, and I would not allow myself to, as in your own words, Camille, to bury myself in the basement. I wasn't going to do that. And I had a conversation with everybody. And I said, we're going to live our life with hope. And I told the kids, because kids get parentified. They feel so bad that they want to take care of their parents, right? And I told them, no, go to your soccer games. Or don't think that you have to stay home because we're dealing with this. We will deal with this together, but we will also have a life together. And I think that kind of set everything moving forward with the way that I handle business and my life. And I often talk about Stephen Covey,
Mhm.
right? First things first, and how I have a very calendar driven life. And the big rocks
Get in there.
are the things that give me joy. Traveling. As a matter of fact, next week I'll be on a cruise with my husband
Ah,
and going out with my family, and making sure that we treat each other like very, very valuable people and not
mm,
just,
that
you know, just figures in your life. So that would be the answer to your beautiful question.
uh,
And thank you for allowing me to share that. I hope that that kind of gives a little bit of motivation and encouragement to other people who are listening today. So, Camille, I want to thank you for the time that you've spent with us. And if you have any parting words, please. And also tell us how we can buy your book.
oh, fabulous. I just want to acknowledge that is such a beautiful story, and everyone listening is probably navigating something hard, and it's their own heart. It's their own path that has been chosen for them. And I think surrounding yourself and listening to this podcast, listening to people who have that level of hope and that level of tenacity and that level of clarity, like that is a lovely gateway to passing forward. Um, I do hope people will read the book because it is something I think is meant to be out in the world for people who want to craft a life that is authentic and genuine and purpose-driven and massively successful. So living real at livingreal.aimleadership.com is our book website. Aimleadership.com is my website, but there you can download a free copy, a free chapter. You can get a sense of the work. We've free summaries that can help people really start to say, okay, how do I turn this into action? What is it that I need? So livingreal.aimleadership.com is a great place. And I look forward to
Yeah.
hearing people's thoughts.
And it's AIM leadership, right?
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, great, 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 great. Well, thank you again, Camille. This was really fantastic. I really felt like we had a connection and that we are bonded somehow by the very same things that we talked about today. So thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best moving forward, especially for the book. So for all of you listening, don't forget that this is a game changer for your life. If you're going through something and even not, just to prepare yourself for what it is. Thank you, Camille.
A pleasure. Stay well. Live.
Thank you.